Hi, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. This is Victoria from Visa Place. Can you guys hear me okay? Can you guys see me all right? I'm just going to give everybody a few minutes to join us, and then we can get started. If everyone can give me a thumbs up, if you can see me, or let me know where you're coming from, where you're tuning in. I'd love to know. Hi, everyone. We got one like from Abo. Hi, Abo. Nice to meet you. Where are you tuning in from? Awesome. We've got some visitors from Charleston, Jamaica. Hello there. Hi, Alfaz. Hi, Arafat. Nice to meet you guys. I'm looking forward to our session today. We're going to be going over a few topics, including express entry, study permits. I'll be going over the IEC, the International Experience Canada program as well, too. Hi, Bruno. We have Miriam here. Hello from Ecuador. Awesome. All right, I'll just give everybody a little bit of time, and then we can get started. Hi, Alfaz. Alfaz is from Bangladesh, and we have Imad from Morocco. I love it. We've got some folks from the US, Suzanne, Kurdistan. Hi there, Noor. We got some Farid from Iran. Welcome. Tell me about the weather from where you guys are. Is it nice? Is it cold? Is it warm? I'd love to know. Halavi from Sudan. All right. All right, thanks so much everyone for joining today for our Facebook Live session. As I mentioned, my name is Victoria. I am a regulated Canadian immigration consultant with Visa Place. So let's talk about what's on the agenda for today. We have express entry, which continues to be a very hot topic. So a recap of what's going on in the latest Canadian Experience class draw, as well as other rounds to come. I'll also be going over the very popular IEC program and some COVID and country updates there. And as well as for anyone that's looking to apply for school in Canada. For us, school starts in September, so I'm happy to share some study permit tips with everyone. And last but not least, some proposed changes to the intake system for the Ontario PMP program. And as always, at the end of our session, we do have a live Q&A period. So save your questions or post your questions in the chat box below, and I'll get to them as soon as I can. Awesome. All right. So following the very big express entry round that happened last month on February 13th, we've all been holding our breath to see what the next round would be like. And last week, we saw 5,000 invitations sent out with a minimum score of 449. Again, this was CEC targeted, so it is for people who are already in Canada with the 1 year of qualifying work experience. But comparing to last year, we can see that the government does seem to be following some of the same trends of inviting people who are already in the country, given the current COVID restrictions as well as the border closures. So 2021 is looking to a little bit like last year, which means over the next couple of months and rounds, we'll start to see people from Canada, so CEC as well, PNP focused draws. With the high number of immigration targets that was announced, the Canadian government is looking to invite those who already in Canada have a job offer or otherwise meet provincial labor market needs. I thought it'd be really helpful for us to do a kind of recap in terms of the immigration targets that were announced. I think this may be really helpful for everyone to understand where we are in terms of meeting that target. So for the federal high skilled trades, which includes Canadian experience class as well as federal skilled worker, the target for 2021 is 108,000. So as of today, 41,000 invitations were sent out. So we're about 40% there for the first quarter of the year. That means for the rest of the year, we're still going to be sending out a lot of invitations to meet that immigration target. In terms of provincial nominee, PMP for short, there is a target of 80,000 for this year. So this is actually quite high in comparison with the federal allocation. And to date, there's only been 2,000 invitations sent out. And so that equals to about 2.5% of our target for the entire year. So what does this mean? The PMP will remain a really big focus. From the 2 consecutive PMP draws that we saw happen this month, we can see that IRCC is committed to helping provinces address labor market needs much quicker, as well as much as possible during the global pandemic. So for those people who are already in Canada, I think this is a really great opportunity to apply for permanent residence. And so don't be discouraged by the point score. Get working on your profile as soon as possible to make sure that you don't miss the opportunity that come up. In terms of federal skilled worker, for people who are outside of Canada looking to come to immigrate to Canada, we can expect the first all program draw to take place around summer this year. So last year, the first general draw happened in July, but that could change and it can come a lot sooner. So to increase your chances for permanent residence, I really recommend reviewing your PMP eligibility. Depending on your job occupation and your personal profile, you may be a very good candidate for PMP. Our team at Visa Place, we have a lot of deep knowledge in terms of the provincial nominee programs. We'd love to connect with you and find additional avenues for you to immigrate to Canada. Some programs do require you to have a job offer, as I mentioned, but there are also many other programs that do not. So you don't want to miss the opportunity for a nomination, especially if you have a low score in the range of 200 to 300 points. It's very possible to receive a provincial nominee. I see this happen all the time. So, make sure you're exploring all your other options as well too, okay? In terms of federal skilled trades, I feel like this is a program that we don't really talk about that much. But there's a lot of people either outside of Canada or within here that qualify for federal skilled trades. You either have education or work experience in the trades or a job offer. So that's one thing that's coming in the horizon. And without question, this year there is going to be a federal skilled trades draw. And in my opinion, I do think it's going to be a big draw compared to previous years. Last year in August, only 250 invitations were sent out. So for those of you who are eligible in a trade such as construction, chef, cooks, industrial or electrical kind of technician trades, job occupations, with or without a job offer, I would suggest working on your profile from now so that there's a high chance for you to be invited under the federal skilled trades. This is definitely going to happen as we start to reopen our borders and ramp up for a post-economic recovery. Previous draws for federal skilled trades took place as early as May. So if you have any doubts or questions about your eligibility, check in with us and we'd be happy to review with you. All right. So moving on to the IEC program. IEC, which stands for the International Experience Canada Program, has been a very popular option for young people around the world for many, many years. So for folks who are between the ages of 18 and 35, depending on your country of citizenship, the more popular countries for us and for Canada for IEC includes the UK, France, Ireland, Australia. A lot of these people apply for a working holiday work permit or a young professionals work permit. Last year's IEC program was cut short because of COVID, unfortunately, but I am excited to share that the 2021 season has officially opened as of March 1st. So pools for many of the countries are now open to candidates applying for any of these programs. But at this time, only candidates with a valid job offer are eligible to receive an invitation and to travel to Canada. Previously, for example, like the working holiday program, you don't normally actually need to get a job offer, but with the COVID restrictions as of right now, in order to receive an invitation, you do have to have that job offer. So that might change or stay the same for the rest of the year, but I would try and get in the pool as soon as possible. You can get into the pool without the job offer. You just won't be selected to invited to apply without that. I do want to share two COVID-related updates for IEC. If you received a port of entry letter for last year's IEC program, you can still apply for an extension if you weren't able to come to Canada. And if you are currently in Canada right now, a new measure that was introduced allows you to apply for IEC from within the country as well as to activate your work permit. And so for people who are already in IEC work permit and you're looking to stay or transition into permanent residence, we'd love to explore your pathway to permanent residence. Express entry is really just only one avenue, but as I mentioned, there's PNP and other federal programs that may work for you as well too. A lot of people who don't qualify for express entry due to not having formal education or a lack of work experience, there's definitely other ways we can get you permanent residence if you want to stay. And for countries that are currently not open right now, there are other work permit options that may work depending on your situation, depending on your nationality and your work experience even. A lot of people look forward to the IEC season as an opportunity to work in Canada, but what we don't realize is that there's other avenues. Canada has many free trade agreements with various countries to help facilitate work permits. So for foreign nationals from Australia, New Zealand, as part of the CPTPP, as well as European Union countries as well too. All right, so let's talk about study permits. I know a lot of you are looking to apply for school come September. Study permits is a very popular option for people to kind of get their foot in the door in terms of coming to Canada and eventually immigrating here and applying for permanent residence. So springtime for us means that students all over the world are gearing up to apply for colleges and universities for September. September is when we start school here. A lot of the schools now have also been added to the DLI list with COVID readiness plans in place, which means that international students are eligible to travel to Canada and begin their studies. During our last session in February, I mentioned that students are eligible for a postgraduate work permit for time spent studying outside of Canada. So that was good until the spring semester, but now IRCC has extended that to the end of the year. So by December 31st, 2021. What does this mean? This means that 100% of your studies completed outside of Canada can still be counted towards your postgraduate work permit eligibility, as well as the duration. So no need to worry if you can't come to Canada for now, you can still get that work permit. All things considered, I know that with COVID and everything that's going on, it's not the most ideal situation, but I really think that, on the silver lining to all of this is that there's a very unique opportunity for international students who are looking to immigrate to Canada in the long term to save on living expenses, rent, spend time with family while you're completing your studies, and be able to connect with fellow students and professors until things open up again. So, just be positive, and, as things open up again, I'm sure we'll see everyone here as soon as possible. I wanted to take a moment today to talk about study permits generally and a few misconceptions that there are in terms of applying for study permits. A lot of people think that a study permit application is really easy and that all you do need is a letter of acceptance. But in my opinion, it's a very complex application. I can't tell you how many study permit refusals that we see every day as we consult with people and as we talk to people all over the world. It's a complex application because there's a fine balance that we have to achieve in terms of balancing your ties to home country. So where you are now, whether that's Jamaica or Iran, the purpose of your studies. So why you're coming to study and making a clear connection between your studies as well as your career plan. I think your study and career plan is probably one of the most important components after being able to demonstrate your financials and proof of funds for studies as well too. Studying is a pathway to immigrating to Canada. And while this may be true, a lot of students make the mistake of noting in their letters that they're applying for study permits because they want to live here or they want to settle here as a permanent resident. And while this may be true, this puts your application at risk for being refused because we're not demonstrating that you have strong ties to your home country. I often see master's students, PhD students get refused, and they get refused once, not even just once, twice, three times even, before they seek professional legal help. And it can be a really frustrating experience to go through. You invest a lot of time and money into applying for schools. So I think it's really important to get some professional help to kind of put you in the right direction and to avoid any disappointment. With the current processing times in some countries being 3 to 4 months, we're in March right now. That doesn't give us much time to apply for your study permit. One word of advice from me is to apply early to secure your study permit. Get it out of the way, get it out, completed and approved in advance so that you don't have to wait until the very last minute. That way that, if there's any issues, this gives us enough time to fix things or to reapply before school starts in September. I see some questions about study permits, so I'm happy to answer that as well after. Oh, I'm talking too fast. I'm so sorry. I'll slow down. All right, so that is it about study permits. The last update that I wanted to share was in regards to the Ontario PNP. So the Ontario PNP program is probably one of the most popular in Canada. I think it is the most popular after British Columbia. There's a high number of skilled immigrants looking to immigrate to Canada, and specifically Ontario. This is our nation's capital province. So it is a very competitive PNP program. In 2020, the province's nomination allocation from the federal government was 7,000. And as I mentioned earlier, the PNP allocation is even higher this year, which means that the OIMP remains very active. And there's some changes to the way they select nominees this year that I'm going to share. So this month, the big news is that the Ontario PNP is going to propose a new expression of interest system. So expression of interest, which is EOI for short, is likely going to be similar to what currently exists in Saskatchewan and Manitoba. Okay, so an EOI intake system is not an immigration application. It's more so for applicants to indicate to the provincial government that they are interested in applying. And once you submit your EOI, the province, Ontario, will be able to review all the eligible candidates and invite you to apply. Usually there's a short time period for you to submit your formal application thereafter. Previously in Ontario, Ontario PNP worked on a first come, first serve basis. And so what we saw throughout the year were that programs were opening and closing throughout the year when quotas were met. So that usually happened in a very relatively short time frame. It could be open for a couple of weeks, it could be open for months. As soon as that quota is filled up, the program closes. So the new EOI system is going to help the province manage intake. So it's going to make it a little bit more fair for all applicants to apply and express their interest. It's also going to speed up the processing time. So it's a little bit less manual in that sense. Um, for those currently in Ontario who are working or have a job offer from an Ontario employer who's overseas, I think the new changes to the EOI system will be a really great opportunity for us to start preparing your application, and making sure that you're applying for a program to secure a nomination. All right. So that does conclude all of our updates for today. And at this time, I'd like to open up the floor to some questions. I know you guys have a lot of good questions here, so I'm happy to answer some of them. Let's see what we got here. Alrighty. So the first question, one of the first questions we have here is, can people with chronic diseases immigrate to Canada? That's a really great question. So to answer your question in short, the answer is yes, you can. But there is a concern here, which is called like a medical inadmissibility that we would have to address. And the threshold for that is to determine whether or not the disease or illness that you have is going to be a strain on society. So basically, the Canadian government and some of our assistance programs. Usually, depending on what the condition is, we'll be able to perhaps get a letter from a specialist or a doctor to confirm that, with medication or that's covered privately or out of pocket, it won't be such a huge strain on the government. So that is a possibility. So, it's a very complex issue. So make sure you do meet with an immigration professional to go over that with you. But the answer is definitely yes. Can you please tell me how to get high bands, and does our visa depend on the highest IELTS band? So there's different components that we're looking at in terms of assessing your permanent residence. Language is one of those, whether it's English or French. It's funny because the English or French language test is probably the one most important area that you have the most control over. That's something that you can keep practicing, and you can keep, doing the practice test quizzes to try and improve your score. And so, does your visa depend on the IELTS band? Sometimes, yes. Depending on the program, there is a minimum benchmark that you have to meet, usually a CLB 5 or 7, depending on your job occupation. But there are other programs in Canada, other provincial nominee programs that don't have a minimum IELTS score. So, depending on what you do for a living, there may other be avenues for you to immigrate. Which provinces are the best to apply for express visa for skilled federal trades worker? Okay, so the federal skilled trades program. I think you meant federal skilled workers, sorry. Okay, which province are the best to apply for federal skilled trades program? So that really depends on your job occupation. So most provinces have noted or listed, which occupations are high demand. So you see a lot of agriculture out west in Saskatchewan, Alberta, BC, and Ontario are very hot provinces for tech in tech industries as well as for tech positions. Out east, there's also different job occupations that are high in demand there. So that does require another level of review. That's something that we can look at for you guys and make a determination in terms of the best province for you to apply to. So we look at, how active your province is in hiring and selecting nominees, as well as your job occupation. So the answer to that is it depends. How long does it take for PR after PMP? So if you are nominated by a province, it's taking about 16 months, I believe, 16 to 18 months. I would probably add a little bit more time just because things are taking a little while with the COVID delays, but about 16 to 18 months at least for your federal application to be processed and approved. But congratulations. It's exciting that you have a nomination. Does cosmetology count as a trade? Unfortunately, no, cosmetology does not count. But depending on what you do, whether you own your own business or what kind of trade it is exactly that you do, there's other programs that may be eligible for you. Self-employed persons class is one, or if you own your own business and you want to expand and open a Canadian subsidiary or another location in Canada, we can get you a work permit to open your business here. So unfortunately, yeah, for skilled trades, cosmetology does not count, I don't believe. Are they processing Canadian visitor visas? Um, Yes and no. Visitor visas are being processed depending on your purpose of travel. If there's an urgent reason, they are being processed quite quickly, or a compassionate reason. But generally, I wouldn't say they're on hold. But because of COVID and everything, the Canadian government is shifting their resources around. Some countries like India, you're not able to get your biometrics done, so that's just temporarily on hold now. They are working on that. So, for example, biometrics is opening up to PR applicants in India, and as soon as those are processed, I think there will be a shift to reopening that for the visitor visas. So if you are interested in applying for a visitor visa, I would say don't wait. Put in your application, submit it, because as soon as borders open up again, we are going to see an uptick of the volumes of applications received, which means that the processing times will also go up. All right, so which PMP accepts more candidates from outside of Canada for accounting professionals, not license and charter? All right, that's a great question. Um, so accounting and finance related occupations are one of the few occupations in high demand. Off the top of my head, I can't recall, but I'm happy to have a consultation with you and we can explore that further. Especially for accounting and finance, I think some of the provinces out east, whether that's in Nova Scotia or New Brunswick, those are in high demand there. So happy to look at that for you guys. Where can one locate a list of businesses that offer positions with sponsorship? That's a good question. I think first, it's good to connect with your network and see, who you may know in order to get a job offer in Canada. But for the the AIMP, the Atlantic Immigration, the program there, there is a list of designated employers that have been published. Which means that if you get a job offer with them, you're pretty much set in terms of applying for permanent residence as well as a work permit. So I think that would be a good starting point for you if you're interested in immigrating to any of the Atlantic provinces. What is the current processing time for intra-company transfer? So this one's going to really depend on where you're applying from, your location, your country of residence, country of citizenship, whether that's one and the same. Depending on where you're applying, where you're making that application, that processing time can be anywhere from 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, even up to a year in some of the Middle East countries. Also depending if it's a high skilled knock. If you are in a knock O, A, or B, you may qualify for global skill strategy, but global skill strategy is still taking some time. So at least allocate a couple months for processing there. We are in Mexico. We were invited to apply through express entry for permanent residence. We applied by the end of 2019, but we have not received an answer yet. And we're supposed to receive one in 2020. Is this due to COVID? Okay, so you guys were invited to apply. You guys submitted your PR application end of 2019, and you haven't received an answer. So end of 2019 is December. Let's say December 2019. We're about 13, 15 months out. It's a potential that it is because of COVID. I think express entry applications are currently taking at least 8 to 10 months to be processed right now. If you are outside of that time frame, it could be due to other reasons as well too. It could be because of maybe a security or criminality or anything that's in your background that the Canadian government's taking a little bit longer to review and assess. So the Canadian government says that 80% of applications are to be processed within the posted processing time, but 20% is still a good chunk, and you may fall under that 20% if it's taking a little bit longer. I would just, be patient. I don't think there's, maybe hopefully there's nothing wrong with your application, but just hang tight and hopefully you hear from them soon. Lots of good questions today. Okay, let's see here. Hello there. I have a 447 CRS score. I got 7 in your French test and 8 in your IELTS. Do I have a chance to get a nomination from Ontario, French speaking program? Absolutely. You do. I think those are very good, excellent scores for both French and English. As you know, the Canadian government is trying to increase the number of francophones in Canada. So both at a federal level as well as provincial level. If you want us to take a look into your eligibility for the Ontario French speaking program, we'd love to take a look further. As I mentioned earlier, the intake system is going to be introduced as well too. So we're going to see how that impacts the program. But definitely, you do have a really good shot. Okay. So, I am a French citizen and I work in South Africa. Can I come directly to Canada with an ETA? If you are a French citizen, yes. And you work in South Africa, yep, you can. I mean, not right now, unless you have a valid purpose for coming to Canada, which is exempt from the COVID restrictions. But otherwise, yeah, if you have an ETA for your passport, for your French passport, you can come to Canada. Just have to apply for that online. Can anyone of any age apply to study in Canada? That's a really great question. I see a lot of clients, who are a little bit older, in their 40s, or even later, like 40s to 50s, who are kind of, worried about applying for study permits, or who think they may not qualify due to their age. I do want to share that it's absolutely possible for you to apply for a study permit, no matter what your age. You could be 35, you could be 60, 70, 80. I think the most important thing really is to have a study plan that is solid, that explains, what your intentions are for taking this program, what your career aspirations are, what are you going to do when you, finish your education in Canada and return to your home country. This is a key component to getting your application approved. It's certainly possible. Mature students are accepted into Canadian colleges and universities all the time. It's a matter of being able to frame the application in a way that will benefit you, and make sure that the immigration officer's concerns are addressed. So absolutely, definitely. Is there any way to join the Canadian Armed Forces even if you're born in another country? I think if I'm not mistaken, I think you may need to be a permanent resident to join the Canadian Armed Forces, if not a Canadian citizen. So you could, even if you're born in another country, provided that you eventually apply and immigrate to Canada as a permanent resident or citizen. I think maybe working in some related occupations related to the Canadian Armed Forces as a temporary foreign worker may be possible as well too. But if you do have any specific questions about this, make sure to schedule a consultation with us, and we'd be happy to check that for you. Okay, let's see here. Okay. Is it possible to get a work permit from outside of Canada? Yeah, absolutely. We apply for work permits from outside of Canada all the time. Depending on what you're doing, depending on what your nationality, your duties, responsibilities are, you can get an open work permit or you can get a closed work permit. So absolutely, you can do that from outside of Canada. Is it possible? No, since earlier this year, Canada Express entry has reduced. Are there any chances of federal express entry would decrease in the near future? Canada Express entry has reduced. Are there any chances that federal would decrease in the near future? I'm not really sure what you're asking, but I think maybe if you're talking about the immigration targets, um, the immigration targets are established and those are released for the next 3 years. So 2021, 2022, and 2023. And that's what the Canadian government is aiming to bring in. So, you know, they're trying to meet those targets as best as possible, working with the provinces to meet the labor market needs. But I think the main message here is that the immigration targets are very aggressive, and what I think is that the activity in terms of express entry is going to increase. Okay, so for maybe if you're looking at outside of Canada, you can qualify under PMP as well too. So the PMP is not just focused for people in Canada. If you're outside of Canada, you can apply as a foreign skilled worker and still receive a nomination. So that was the 10,000 nomination allocation that I mentioned earlier. How can a teacher immigrate for permanent residence? That's a really great question. We get a lot of clients from abroad who are teachers in their home country. One of the first steps is to meet with us and see, if you're eligible to apply for any of the express entry programs or the federal programs. As well, you may be able to get a work permit too, if you're from the States, for example. Another component that we're looking at is whether you can get your licensing or accreditation in each province. So if you're teaching in Ontario, depending if you're teaching at the post-secondary or the high school, secondary school level, you may need to get your teaching accreditation assessed and accepted by the province. So you can definitely immigrate for permanent residence as a teacher. It's definitely possible. We just have to look into it a little bit further. Okay. Next question. Can you answer some questions about spousal visas? My partner is currently on a visitor visa until the middle of May. Pre-COVID would mean that we can leave the country, like the States, for a day and come back. What does that look like now? Okay. So that depends. Is your partner a spouse or a Canadian citizen? If you're looking to come to the States and come back, you may need another approval to come back into Canada for the COVID exemption. I wouldn't recommend it unless you really have to go. But if you do have to make an urgent trip to the US, we've been helping a lot of couples, a lot of folks with the COVID exemption approval, as well as preparing a COVID entry package for you to enter Canada as smoothly as possible. So we're definitely happy to take a look at that if you need to. I already applied for permanent residence through Express Entry, and I have been waiting for almost a year. I see on Facebook pages that some people got approved for in just a few months. Is there anything I could do to speed up my process? My AOR was April 9th, 29th, 2020. 2020. So April last year. So we're just approaching the 1 year mark for your Express Entry application. This honestly really depends on where you're applying from. If you're applying from a country that does a lot of information sharing between Canada, let's say the United States, the UK, you may see that some applications are processed a little bit sooner just because of the ease of access and being able to verify security and background checks. It depends on your personal history as well too. Just because if your friend was approved early and you weren't, doesn't mean that one is the same. It could be very different for the both of you. So unfortunately, is there anything you can do to speed up the process? Right now, no. As you know, with COVID from last year, the government was very backlogged. There was a few months that some applications weren't processed as well. So the government is doing its best to speed up the process, but unfortunately, until then, we do have to hang tight for a little bit until we hear back. What is causing the omission of FSW and FST candidates in the issuance of ITA this year? That's a really great question. Um, Very good thing to notice. All right, so federal skilled workers and federal skilled trades. So I'll work on federal skilled trades first and help answer that. So federal skilled workers, which is usually part of the all program draws and invitations, rounds of invitation, um, because of the global pandemic this year and last year, the Canadian government is really just focusing on people who are in Canada. But it doesn't mean that it's not going to resume. So as I shared earlier, I think that's going to start up in the summer of this year. July was when it started up, and this year it could be sooner. But really, the what we're doing is we're just allowing people in Canada who have the work experience to complete and apply for their permanent residence. It's a lot easier for people in Canada to finalize and submit their PR applications than people who are outside, especially with biometrics and vax closed and not being able to get in certain documents. So it's really just prioritizing those in Canada first before foreign workers outside for federal skilled worker. In terms of federal skilled trades, this program usually does a draw at least once a year, I think maybe twice in some years. So that is a usually lower number of invitations that the Canadian government issues. But federal skilled trades, I think, continues to be a key area for Canada to fulfill labor shortage needs. So I think by the spring or summer this year, we're going to see some movement on the federal skilled trades. It's a matter of making sure that the government is speaking with the provinces, making sure that they're doing the right thing to meet the province's needs as well as labor market and economic needs as well too. Is it possible to reside in other provinces, excluding the province where applicant received PNP? This is an application that we get pretty often. Part of the PNP application is showing that you intend to reside in the province of destination. That's the reason why the province sent out an invitation, a nomination to you. So you do have to show that you genuinely were going to reside in that province. But that doesn't go to say that it's impossible to move to another province after you get permanent residence. For that, you would just make sure that there's a compelling reason as to why, maybe an emergency, family issues, maybe a potential job offer in another province, may allow you to work in another province after you become a permanent resident. But there's always the risk that your permanent residence could be revoked if the Canadian government finds that you didn't genuinely intend to reside in that province. I hope that answers your question. Okay, so understanding that cosmetology isn't a trade, is it still possible to apply for a work permit if I find a job at a salon in Canada, or is that not the best route to take at all? It's a great question. I'm not sure which country you're from. But a hairdresser in Canada is a NOC B skill level. So if you do have a job offer in Canada, if you have an open work permit and you have that right and that work authorization to work, as in cosmetology or a hairdresser, it's possible that you can get permanent residence and apply for a work permit. It really depends on the skill level and what kind of trades you do. Maybe it's specialized, and we can make a good case for a work permit under that. Yeah, it is possible, but maybe let us take a look at it. And if you're interested in going to school to maybe upgrade your skills, I think going for the study permit route may be an option as well for you too. While you're on a study permit, you can work part-time during your studies, full-time during scheduled school breaks. And if you choose the right program, you may qualify for a postgraduate work permit after as well too. All right. I am a widow with 4 children. I've been self-employed my whole life, but I am presently studying ACA, which I think is accounting. I would like to relocate. What's my best route? Funds is not a problem. Awesome. I'm really happy to hear that. So you have been self-employed, and you're studying for accounting, I believe. Yeah. Okay. So depending on your country of citizenship, you may qualify for a work permit directly, with or without a job offer in Canada. If you're self-employed, we just have to demonstrate that you've been working in your field, you've been filing your taxes as a business or corporation, and that you have contracts with clients. You could do a federal skilled worker. That's probably the main category for you, or potentially looking at opening up your own business in Canada, maybe, or provincial nominee. As I mentioned to one of the other questions as well too, if you want to upgrade your education, either finance or accounting, you can look into studying in Canada as well, and relocating that way. Can you tell me about investment options, please? Yeah, I'm happy to share some details about that. All right, so I think I guess the first point that I want to share about investment options, in previous years, back in the day, it was possible maybe to make a passive investment in Canada, but investment options and entrepreneur options are becoming increasingly more competitive at the federal and the provincial level. In some provinces, some less popular provinces, the minimum investment would probably be 150,000 Canadian dollars, and you have to show a net worth of $300,000. In other provinces like Ontario or British Columbia, the threshold for investment opportunities can be quite high. You're looking at $500,000, 500,000, or even upwards to $1 million. But the other component that we want to take into consideration here is the viability of your investment, your business, so whether or not it's going to do well. Those are all super important factors to think about. So I'm happy to do a consultation with you. Any of our team members would love to be able to look into this further for you. If you guys want to have a consultation with us after, I will share a code when we're finished, and that will give you a discount for our consultation. Does MPNP you still use friend connections for immigrants to come in? Yes. The answer to that is yes. So for Manitoba, provincial nominee program places a strong emphasis on having a connection in Canada, whether that's a friend, close relative, or a distant relative. So yes, you still do get points for that, but if it's an immediate family member, mom, dad, brother, sister, anything like that, you do get a better, higher scoring points in their system. But a friend still counts, so definitely. Is a work visa a good way to start and then apply for express entry? My partner would not be able to sponsor me, but you really want to move there. Awesome. A work permit is definitely a good way just to get your Canadian work experience, but depending on your personal circumstances, you may be able to apply for express entry immediately. So if that option is available to you, I would look into it, think about applying for both a work permit and express entry concurrently, so that you can relocate and immigrate to Canada sooner. Just a few more questions here, guys, and then we're going to wrap up. Hi, I want to fly from South Africa to Canada for a research visit for 6 months. I am a French citizen, and as far as I understood, I just need the ETA. Am I correct? Okay. So you want to fly from South Africa to Canada? I think you asked me. I think you were the one that asked the question before. So if you're a French citizen, you do need an ETA, electronic travel authorization, to fly to Canada, to come to Canada. That's what the airline is checking before you even board. But it depends on what your research visit is going to be. Is it for personal? Is it for an entity in Canada? Depending on what that looks like, you may need a special permit, a work authorization to conduct that. If you qualify for a business visitor, that may be an option as well too. So I would have a look into that a little bit further, just to make sure that you're not doing anything that's contrary to the immigration regulations. Okay, so one last question here, and then I think we're going to call it a day, guys. It is 12:50 p.m. Eastern. What is the normal processing time for criminal rehabilitation? This is a really great question. So for everybody that's not familiar with the criminal rehabilitation application, that is when you have a past criminal conviction that's barring you from being able to come to Canada, which makes you criminally inadmissible. And a formal application does need to be be submitted in order to get that overlooked in order for you to visit Canada. So depending on where you're submitting, if you're in the US, that goes to the Canadian General Consulate in New York, or the nearest visa office in your country. So that could take anywhere from 8 to 12 plus months to process. Okay, so make sure if you're looking to come to Canada and you do qualify for criminal rehabilitation, start as soon as possible, and we'd be happy to submit that for you. All right. So I think that concludes all of our questions for today, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. It was a very busy and active session. Lots of great questions. I hope all of you were able to take away at least something from our session today. And, no matter where you are in your immigration journey, whether that's early on in the stages, you've already applied, or you're looking to apply. I'll see you guys next time for our other Facebook Live sessions. If you need further information from us and you want us to take a look at your current circumstances, book a consultation with us. There's a promo code. It's a VN20. So those are my initials, VN20, for a discount off your consultation. We'd love to connect, figure out where you are with your plans to immigrate to Canada, and hope to see you guys soon. Okay, so until then, take care and stay safe. Bye, guys.